How's everybody doing? Good afternoon. Last panel of Soccerex. We made it. Come on, round of applause. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do it. So I'm Marco Messina. I work for CBS Sports, and I've been tied to Serie A my entire life. I've been very lucky over the past year, 8 months or so, to have met Andy Mitchell, who now is the president, USA, of Serie A and works out of the New York office. So, Andy, first of all, welcome to Soccerex, and happy to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Marco.
So, Andy, like I said, I've been around Serie A for years now. And usually I'm able to pick out somebody that works for Serie A. It's an Italian guy, somebody I can recognize. And then there's you, Andy Mitchell,
The
from
outlier.
Georgia. How did you get involved in Serie A?
I'm very lucky. So I've been working in media my whole career, and a huge football fan, soccer fan, and I decided I wanted to try and figure out how to parlay my media experience into football, and it took me 7 years, and I got here though. I landed.
Who was your team growing up?
Well, growing up, I was an Atlanta Chiefs fan, and then I
Okay.
was a lap soccer fan, and now I've been a big New York City Football Club supporter. Yeah.
There we go. You got two people.
From two. That's pretty good.
Brandway CFC.
2 out of 20.
Yeah.
So I've been a big New York City Football Club from day one. I figured I've got a 14-year-old son,
Okay.
and wanted something us to share in together, and who gets to be a fan of a team literally from the first day. So we got season tickets, and it's a great thing for us to do together.
Awesome. I want to get into your background. It's awesome. And I think it's really cool the way that you're able to blend things. Why don't you give a little bit of context for those that don't know what you're in charge of and what you do at Serie A right now?
Sure. So official title is CEO and Managing Director of Serie A USA. So my job really, I think about it, and for those of you that were here yesterday, apologies, because I'm going to use the same framing. But I think about it in kind of four separate responsibilities. One is audience development. So how do we grow just engagement for Serie A generally? It can be with our broadcasts. It could be with our social channels. It could be with an email newsletter that we just launched, Calcio Weekly. But just generally, more people engage with Serie A. Number 2 is brand marketing. So as you know, because you've been a fan your whole life, it's an amazing league with incredible competition on the pitch. But not enough people in America understand that. So how do we just get more people to understand what the league is, how it's different? We're leaning in a lot on a new Made in Italy brand, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the Italian culture is really our differentiator. We know I can speak for Americans as being the American in the room, usually around a bunch of Italians, but Americans love Italy. And so how do we do a better job of connecting Calcio, which I learned in the job. My first days, I called it Calcio because I just read it. So brutal mispronunciation, but learned it's Calcio. But how do we just connect Calcio to Italian culture? So whether that be food or fashion or technology and innovation, all the different ways that Americans experience Italian culture. I could, from people that I know, it seems like everybody goes to Italy for holiday. So just connecting, their connection to Italian culture, to Italian football. 3 is commercial. So how do we start to really build a commercial business here in the U.S.? A lot of that is tied to our content development efforts. And lastly, and I think just as important to anything, is community outreach. So we partner with Street Soccer USA. We built a pitch in the South Bronx of New York. We did a media center and did training there. Tomorrow here in Miami, we're partnering with Rome City Institute, Puma, and Christian Pulisic's team to do a community event for kids, high school kids. We're doing a panel on careers in football, and then the coaches from Rome City are going to do some Italian training with the local kids here.
Nice. So it seems like you guys are doing a lot.
We're doing a lot. We're trying to do a lot. We have a small but mighty team.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen the work out of the office. You guys get a lot of done. How were your first days when you signed for Serie A? Because you come from a very different background. You were at Meta for a long time, and I'm sure you learned a lot through that experience. So what were your first days, and what did you learn from Meta that you've taken into taken into action at Serie A?
It's a great question. So I would say, first of all, the American business culture and the Italian business cultures are very different. So
To say the least.
So navigating that has been a real challenge. But I think take a step back. So when I was interviewing, I had someone on my team at Meta who was Italian. He was based in London, but there's idiosyncrasies about Italian business that I was confused by when I was interviewing, so I would call him. And one day he said to me, So if you get this job, you cannot be the New Yorker that you are. And I was like, what does that mean? And then day one, I realized what that meant. It's just it's a different pace. It's a different culture, and it's been fun to try and adapt. I've tried to adapt. I've had to adapt to a bunch of different cultures. Part of my job at Facebook was building an international team, so spent a lot of time traveling in different cultures in South America and Asia. So had a good sense of that, but certainly being immersed in Italian culture and really adapting to that single culture and committing to it has been a process.
What's been, I mean, besides football, just life-wise, culture-wise, what's been the hardest thing to adapt? Because I remember the first days, and just to give everybody context here, we were out to dinner one time with everyone from Serie A, and Andy was new, and he wasn't eating. And I was like, Andy, first things first is you got to eat around Italians. You can't say no. I have an Italian grandmother. Anyone that would ever come over, if you didn't eat, it was like an insult. What challenges did you face on that side?
I mean, a lot. I mean, I think language is a big barrier. So I could list my, and this is embarrassing at this point. I should be better, and I commit to everyone in the room I will be better. But I could count the words of Italian on one hand that I speak today. Tomorrow will be different. So that's obviously people revert to their native language a lot, which is totally understandable. So I think getting comfortable and having the confidence to know they're actually not talking about me. So that's nice. But in all seriousness, just like being comfortable that it's fine that they can have conversations that I have no idea what they're saying. And ultimately, it always comes back to English. So that's been a big learning. I think response times are a little different. Like service level agreements, as we would call in the tech world, are a little bit different in American culture and Italian culture. So just like taking a deep breath and being comfortable with, waiting for that response.
And how's it been implementing some of the stuff that you learned in that world, in the corporate world, in Meta, and implementing it into Serie A? Well, like, you obviously had a great perspective because you came from the outside. What were the things that you noticed that right away from the get-go you wanted to implement?
So I would say we're still working on implementing some of them, but I think really, and I learned so much when I worked at Facebook and got to work with incredibly smart people, and a lot of them came from management consulting backgrounds, so really learned a lot about taking a big step back and thinking strategically about the business and really creating a timeline and a roadmap for where we want to go. So we've spent a lot of time really thinking strategically about the market, and I think we made some great smaller steps, but the question is, how do we think about a 3 to 5 year vision? And a lot of focus, and you can't, we've heard a lot about it over the last couple of days here, but it's the World Cup in 26, and the path to get there and to really be, we've set a goal for ourselves to be the most important and the biggest league in America for continental Europe by the time the World Cup comes. So really setting that, vision for where we want to go and what the roadmap and the path looks like to get there.
I think there's a lot of exciting things about Serie A, both with the coverage from CBS, but also 3 Italian teams in the final last year. Unfortunately, we didn't get any winners, but it's all right. We'll work on that for this year. How do you see the progression that's gone also from the outside? Because as a kid that grew up in New York, having an office in the city seems like a dream. But what goes on the day-to-day to try to implement and try to get not just people like me that grew up with the league, but also like a young American fan that doesn't have that same connection to the league?
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm the luckiest guy in the world because, as you mentioned, we had one team in each of the European finals. But then this summer we went out and signed 4 of the top American players, so that helped a lot. So really thinking about, and I get made fun of around the office for maybe over-rotating in that direction a little bit, but I do think obviously Americans are interested in Americans, right? And I went to the U.S. men's national team game in Hartford a few weeks ago, a rainy day just like this. Fortunately, we're inside. But sat next to a guy, and I saw he had a AC Milan jersey under his seat. And I said, "Oh, you're a Milan fan." And he said, "I'm a Christian Pulisic fan, and that makes me a Milan fan." So I think really trying to use these players to sell the league more broadly, right? Because they're only on 2 teams, and our job very clearly is to represent all 20 teams, but to get fans engaged with those players on those 2 teams and then use that as leverage to expand that interest, more broadly.
We have Tanya in the crowd here, and she mentioned on the panel, rightfully so, that yes, they're American players, but first and foremost, they're great players. That's why they were signed, not 100%. Because they're Americans. That's on the field. We know that. We see the impact. What have they had on off the field in terms of the metrics that you guys are working with in the New York office?
I mean, I think a good example is what we're doing tomorrow. So, what we've been working with Christian Pulisic, and I don't know if Matthew on his team is here right now, but we've been working closely with them to understand how they want to work in the market. So that's really the inspiration for the event we're doing at the Pulisic Stomping Ground came directly from Christian's manager, who said we want to do more with the community. We have this place in Miami, and we brainstormed and thought about what we can do together, and that's really what hatched this idea. So, I think working with those players and trying to understand what's important for them in the U.S. and how can we as an office bring that to life.
You mentioned the 4 pillars of where you guys are trying to achieve. I think one of them that's super important, obviously the football speaks for itself. The what's on the pitch has to be great. But off the pitch, Italy as a country, able to compete. And I know we have a video from the Made in Italy campaign. If we could roll that and then.
Great. Perfect. Did you guys in the back get the cue for the Made in Italy video? It was subtle.
There we go.
From Italy. It's not just football, it's Italian excellence. And it's adored in America. Italy, renowned for its unrivaled art, fashion, and cuisine, has another masterpiece to showcase. Serie A. Bold, stylish, and brimming with life. It's the epitome of Italian flair. This isn't merely a league, it's a proclamation of Italian quality. America says football, the world says soccer, but in Italy it's calcio. Yet calcio isn't just a term, it's a fervor, it's a way of life. The Scudetto, a symbol of glory, proudly graces the champions' jerseys, passed down each season as it swaps shirts to the current kings. It's not just a badge, it's a crown of Italian mastery. And the fans, they are the pulse of Serie A. From the roaring Curva Sud to the bustling American streets, their passion knows no limits. American talents are irresistibly drawn to Serie A. This season, the greatest US men's national team players are on Italian soil. Serie A, made in Italy, adored in America.
You want me to talk about that?
I do. The crowd seemed to like it.
Yeah. So I mean, as I said before, there's so many things that are unique about Italy that Americans love. So again, how do we think about connecting, right? Whether it be shirts, right? Jerseys are in Italy are the beautiful shirts, history of beautiful shirts. How do we connect those to how Americans think about fashion and do some partnerships in the fashion world? Italian coaching is very unique. If you look around the world, Italian coaches they have a differentiated coaching style. It's been incredibly successful.
That's right.
So one of the things that we're doing, and I mentioned Rome City and Serie A Elite. So we're bringing, through Serie A Elite, we're bringing Italian coaching to communities all around the U.S. They're reaching about 1,000 players every year today and continuing to grow, doing talent identification programs, and actually bringing kids to Italy to train as well as go to school. So sharing the differentiated Italian coaching style. There's a lot we can do across food. So again, we're really starting to think about strategically the opportunities, maybe doing travel packages, partnering with airlines, just to connect calcio to Italian travel to Italy.
And I believe there's something that's coming out soon, right? I don't know if you could speak on it. The video series that's coming out with tying in Made in Italy.
There is?
Yeah.
Oh, right. The series, right? Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think you're thinking American.
I thought I spoiled.
So no. This is
Pretty
announced.
sure it was
No,
public.
this is announced. Sorry, I was thinking about things we produce. Right. So this is actually a really cool part of the Made in Italy program, and thank you for that. Not top of mind, obviously, but the team in Italy in our production center in Lusone has created a video, 3-minute video or so, for all 20 clubs, and really showing what's unique about the culture of each of those cities and each of those clubs as part of the Made in Italy program. So those are going to start rolling out on CBS, and we'll also share those across our social channels, YouTube, et cetera. But CBS will air those as part of their coverage throughout the season as those are produced.
Obviously, I agree with the strategy to promote Italy as a country, but the U.S. market's very competitive. I mean, we see here at Soccerex, we had Premier League, we had La Liga, we had Bayern Munich. How do we stay ahead? How does Serie A stay ahead?
I think we had to be creative. We had to be scrappy, and again, I think really using the differentiation, because I think as an American football fan, it's really hard to discern each country and how they're different, and so from afar. So again, Italian culture, there are 51 million people in the US that have an affinity for Italian culture. So that's a great target market for us. We reach a relatively small percentage of them now, about 5 million. So with 46 million people to target, just continuing, and you're right, there's a lot going on here in the US. It's a very competitive market. So I think it's about like continually trying to develop new ways to showcase what's unique about Italy.
And to build on that, I know you love your podcast. You listen to a lot of different things. Is there a model for you? Maybe not just another league that we look at, but maybe even another sport like Formula One, the things that they're doing. You mentioned American football. Is there anything that you look at and you say we could be doing or implementing some of these strategies towards Serie A?
So yes, but I think it's a little bit of everything, right?
Okay.
So I think from I went to my first game at the San Siro, and if anybody ever has, if you haven't been there, you have the opportunity. It's an incredible atmosphere. It's really, really special. The first time I went there, I was with my Italian colleague, and I asked her, I said, have you ever been to an American football game? And she said no. And I said, it's the only atmosphere that comes close to what this is. And I'm not talking every American football game, college football. I went to the University of Georgia, so it's like colleges like that, or the University of Michigan. So how do we demonstrate to people like this unique college football culture that you understand happens every weekend across 20 stadiums in Italy? So that's part of it. I think from a content, again, I've heard it mentioned from the stage a bunch of times, so I'll be the last one because we're the last panel. But from a content development standpoint, we don't want to do Drive to Survive. I think that format is a little bit tired at this point. But how do you bring people inside the sport and show them what's really differentiated? And we're really lucky because Sarah has the #1 league YouTube channel in the world. So how do we use that as a distribution method and really, demonstrate what's unique about the stadiums, the culture, the players, the clubs? So again, from a content development standpoint, we just launched a new series on social that we're doing every week. That's a wrap up of the weekend, but we're not just doing highlights. We're not doing like a television style show. We're doing a very socially oriented, kind of different take on the weekend's matches. We launched an email newsletter called Calcio Weekly that is coming out every Thursday, except Thanksgiving. It'll be out on Friday. But, I'm a media junkie. You talk about my podcast addiction, which is a real problem. Also, email newsletters are a problem for me. But if anybody reads the Axios newsletters, I like that they're really snappy and they're nice aggregation of different topics. So that was really our inspiration. So I think one of the challenges we had is if you want to follow Italian football every week and you're an American and you want it in English, there's not necessarily a great destination to find that content from a news source. So what we're doing, and Ryan Bailey is over here, who is our author of Calcio Weekly, is finding the best stories and the best content from across social and across all the English language and even some Italian publications, and bringing them to Americans in a digestible format with a link out to that story in full. So that's off to an incredible start. We have a 54% open rate. So if anybody works in emails, that's like literally off the charts. So it's a relatively small base, but so we're on to something. We think we've got something unique there. So I think really trying to pick and choose from all the sports that are successful and think about what's relevant to Italian football and try and bring that to Americans.
You mentioned that you've been very lucky with timing, and I fully agree with that. I feel like a lot of Serie A teams have started to wake up. We also have 6 North American ownerships, which is extremely lucky. And then even if you go down to Serie B, it seems like every American with money is investing in Serie A, which I think speaks to the white space. What's been your relationship there, working with them, and how much easier has it been that they are American owned?
Yeah, I think that's really an opportunity for us, and we need to focus more there. So really, again, it's only been 7 months. And the focus has been creating that strategic plan. But I do believe there are American owners and probably Italian owners too, that because there's a lot of investment in this market and people see it as a big opportunity. So I think collaborating more closely with the owners, we do with the teams today, but I think the owners bring a different perspective and can really help us. So I think that's an opportunity for us for sure.
You mentioned fan engagement, obviously being very important, and I've seen even on the Instagram, on Serie A's North American Instagram, you guys even let fans come in. You bring that Scudetto trophy. Has been all around the world. It's been everywhere in the United States.
People love the Scudetto.
They do. I know everybody touches that. So for you, what else? How much deeper do you want to go? We've seen parties being thrown. We saw the clips from Ribalta. What else? How much further can you go on fan engagement?
Yeah, so it's frankly one of my biggest struggles. So, a lot like a political campaign, the question is, how much do you focus on the base and solidifying the base versus how much do you go out to different audiences and try and, bring in people that aren't necessarily in your camp? And that's been the balance today. I think, you're a good example. It seems like everybody I meet here or everywhere is a good example of people that just grew up with Calcio and they live it and they've got their club and they've generations. And so in a lot of ways, it's very important, and we want to solidify that. But in the interest of ruthless prioritization, which is something we talk about a lot at Facebook, was we don't have a lot of resources. So where do we go? So we really try to focus on the new fans, and that's why again we're flexing on Made in Italy and all those cultural connections because we really want to try and grow the game. I do believe there's a really big opportunity for us not to do like the everyday kind of watch parties. I'm thinking more like Italian cultural festivals that really Calcio's at the center of, but we bring in people who are interested in Italian culture, and then we kind of bring them in broadly and then hook them with football once they're there.
Nice. I know we're running out of time, but is there anything that people could look forward to or anything else that we've missed that you'd like to promote that Serie A's got coming, planned soon?
I think we talked a lot about it. I think one thing we really want to focus on is content development in new ways. So again, we launched this weekly series, just thinking more about how we can create more content and bring that in. So using our social channels more, taking advantage of the YouTube audience. So 24 is going to be a big, fun, exciting year for us, and a lot of it's going to be on the editorial side of the business.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Cool.
Appreciate it.